Good day and welcome to A Place Called Through. I am your host, Evangelist Patricia Wade Goings, and we're broadcasting from WRTV 7 Community Broadcasters Network. Today, our guest is going to share with you stories of matters of the heart. Sadly, so many children are either witnesses or have become victims of domestic violence. And these are the kind of stories that we share here on A Place Called Through. People going through, getting through, and after they have come through. These are the inspirational stories that we like to share with you, and we do so globally with your help. So we ask that you continue to sow those seeds into the ministry so that we can continue with this mission of hope, empowering, educating, and inspiring people. So we want to take this time out to thank our guest, Ms. Julia Federico, who's coming to you to talk about heart, the matters of the heart. No one wants to be abused. People don't ask for this, but it does happen. And it is happening so globally. The numbers are constantly escalating, and there's so many numbers and conditions that have not even been reported. So we want to just go ahead and jump right on into this topic today of the children that are being abused. It is not okay. It is nothing that has to be accepted. But we want her to share with you a little bit more about this matter of the heart, children being abused. Again, I welcome you to A Place Called Through. Ms. Federico, it's my honor to have you today as my guest. And so we want to talk to you, so our listeners and our viewers to, people say domestic violence. So kind of bring us into what is domestic violence. I mean, sadly, somebody out there may not even know what it is. So kind of talk to us about that, if you will.
If you don't know what it is, I'd love to talk to you because I'd love to know where you've been living the past 10 years.
You'd be surprised. Even though we hear about it, there's so many people that are like, what? Huh? So just kind of highlight us, if you will.
Sure. A quick overview is domestic violence is domestic. It's violence that happens in your house between family members. They can be married or unmarried, and that can come in any direction. It can be from wife to spouse, from father to daughter, from cousin to nephews, grandparents to grandchildren. So it can be any interfamily relationship that turns violent is domestic violence. So domestic violence happens at home.
And so some of the indicators for domestic violence are what? The beatings, or are there other forms of, because some people, it may be an emotional thing, right?
I think there's three chief forms of domestic violence, but the physical abuse gets all the press. And that's what I wanted to talk to you today was about emotional and financial abuse. I encountered emotional and financial abuse, and I was never hit. And that's kind of unusual because usually when you have two, you have the third, but not always. All of my abuse was verbal and emotional and financial.
And that's what we want to get into. That's why I went where we went, so that you could go ahead and start talking to us about the abuse that you endured and how you got through it.
Well, I would say the first 7 years, if you would have asked me, Julia, are you in a domestic violence relationship? I would have said no. I did not see the signs of what I was living in, and I was there. I thought domestic violence had to be physical in nature. I was not educated about emotional abuse. I have a master's degree in counseling with a bachelor's in social work and a psych minor. That's a whole lot of schooling. And I had never heard the term emotional abuse and all of that learning. It wasn't until I read a book. I read a book called I Don't Want to Talk About It. And when I read that book, this shiver went down my spine. It was like that lady had taken a video camera and followed me around for 6 months in my house, which is completely untrue. She didn't know me. When I read that book, I'm like, holy cow. I am up against some real heavy, evil stuff. And I wasn't calling it that prior probably to that. I was just saying I lived with a difficult husband who was challenging, and that was it. Had marital problems. I mean, who doesn't have marital problems, if you're married? But I would have never encountered and called it domestic violence until I educated myself. And when I educated myself about it, I started to see things differently. I started to say to myself, Julie, you're not going to win this battle. This is unsolvable. I was reading every marriage book on Amazon, trying to save my marriage. And after I read, I don't want to talk about it, I stopped working on my marriage because I knew at that point it was a done deal.
Because then you began to feel kind of like hopeless. You couldn't do anything. You didn't know how to fight back. So that goes back to my, my earlier statement about people not knowing, because there's so many other ways outside of the physical, effects of domestic violence. There's also, as you stated, that financial part. There's that emotional part. But then you started digging, and as you dug, then it was like, okay, this is me. This is my heart that matters here. And so now you're digging and digging and trying to figure out, okay, where do I go and what do I do? How do I get out of this? Because now you're in the realization that, yes, this is a real situation. I am in an abusive relationship. So that's what I wanted to convey, on why we went where we went, so that people will get a clear understanding. Okay, you don't necessarily have to be beaten. You don't have to necessarily, get tossed from side to side, but in a way you are, because of the emotional part that happens. And that's where we wanted to go. So here you are now, you're at a point now where, I realize this is really me. So your next term of action was what, after you realized, okay, you were being abused?
I did something really weird. I got pregnant with my second daughter. I was 37 years old and the doors were closing, as they say. So I had one more baby with my husband. And then after she was born, almost immediately after she was born, we made plans and I moved home when she was 6 months old and we left. My older daughter was 3.5 and my younger daughter was 6 months old. But really what I started to do was, it was kind of a freedom, because I wasn't trying to mediate things with him anymore. I wasn't trying to problem solve. I wasn't constantly trying to please him, which I had always done, which was exhausting. I had kind of resigned that this is the way it was going to be. And I didn't need to keep working so hard to keep him happy, because he wasn't going to be happy no matter what I did. So when I learned that I was living with domestic violence, it kind of gave me a freedom in a way to be like, oh, this isn't my fault, because he made everything my fault. Everything was always my fault. And I believed that. I believed if I was a better wife, I could save this marriage. If I was a better wife, I could get him to love me more. If I was a better wife, he would love our children. And those are all very, very false beliefs.
Yeah, that's that emotional part there, because you've been led now to believe, as I've heard many people say, nobody else is going to want you. You'll never be anything. You can't do anything without me. You need me. And that's the manipulation that happens in these situations where you've gotten beaten down to that point, that I can't get out of this. I can't do anything. And so we just want, our listeners and our viewers to know, if you're in this situation, get help. Go to your local resources. Google provides so much information, but the National Domestic Violence Hotline number is 1-800-799-7233. Call that number. Those hotlines are available to you no matter where you are. It's a nationwide number, and you can get help to get out of that situation so that you don't have to live that lifestyle. They will help you also on that emotional factor that we've just talked about too, because now you're beat down and you're believing one thing. So now you have to learn again that, yes, I am productive, I am somebody, and I will be somebody. But we're going to pause shortly for a commercial break, and then we're going to come back and talk to you some more about this route of escapism, and from there, what you are now doing and how you're helping others that have fallen into this trap, especially the children that are victims of domestic violence. So stay with us. We'll be back momentarily right after this commercial break here on A Place Called Through, where we're talking to Miss Julie Federico today on Matters of the Heart. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And again, I am your host, Evangelist Patricia Wade Goings, and we're here on A Place Called Through, those inspirational moments. We'll be back momentarily. And again, we're going to dig right on back into, the matters of the heart, how this is affecting children nationwide, and the things that happen to them, because as a child being abused, their emotions are all over the place because they're having some of those same thoughts that you were having. Why me? I don't understand it. And, they don't, because they're still growing up, but the violence is happening to our youth today. So we have to rally together and, help them. Again, call that national number for all the help. We'll be back momentarily. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Kevin Washington, and for over 30 years, I've committed myself to the skill set of grant writing in the name of serving those communities most vulnerable. And now, I'm going to pass this on to you. So whether you're a beginner working in your own nonprofit, or you want to work at your own pace to learn more about grant writing, Excellence Academy is just for you. So don't delay. I'll see you in the classroom.
Welcome back to A Place Called Through. I am Evangelist Patricia Wade Goings, and we're here with our guest today, Miss Julia Federico, talking about hearts that matter. Our children are our hearts that matter. Sadly, so many children, it's an estimated across the world that there are more than, 1 million children that's being abused. And, there's so many unreported cases of domestic violence. So today, Miss Federico has been sharing with us, how she went through the abuse, but it was more of an emotional and financial state of abuse. So we know that domestic violence does take forms in different ways of being abused and how you go through it and how you come through. So we want to pick right back up with Miss Federico. You mentioned earlier that, on Amazon, you were able to, get some information that kind of led you to understand that this is me. It identified who you were. So talk to us now. Did you have family support while you were going through this? Was that, because I do understand that sometimes the families, they just don't support situations because they themselves don't understand it. So was your family supporting you during this time? Because we know that you had 2 children. So how were you able to balance that out?
My family was not supporting me. I prayed a lot. I cried a lot. I journaled a lot. That was my family. I liked what you said in the last comment when you said, if you are living with domestic violence, call the hotline. I would call the hotline rather than talk to your family, because a lot of family members don't understand, and you could self-disclose to them and they turn right around and talk to your husband or your partner. And that's not going to be what you want. I would talk to a trained professional. I trusted very few people. I probably told maybe one friend what was going on, but I knew enough to keep my mouth shut, and that served me well.
And again, we want to put up that number again for help. It's 1-800-799-7233, and that is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So again, please call it for any help. If you're in a situation, you know someone that's going through, 1-800-799-7233. Get your help today. And so now, you've gone through this horrendous process and you're on the road to recovery. So, we understand that you have 2 daughters. And of course, like a mom, you want the best and you're going to try to protect your kids so that they don't get in those kind of relationships. But then after, you realize, I've got to get out of here. You had a plan of action, you put it into action, and you were able to get out of that situation. So because you were able to get out, now you're in a situation and you're helping people. So talk to us about what you're doing to help the community at large to remedy some of this amongst, the people in the community.
Well, I kind of do it from a 2-pronged approach. I write and blog a lot about domestic violence and the DNA of domestic violence, which a lot of people don't understand. So I talk about it from an adult perspective. I've also written a children's book called Anger is Okay, Violence is Not. And it kind of has a dual purpose. It is a message for students and kids that are in that toddler stage and they're pushing up against anger, but it also has a hidden message of domestic violence. So I work hard to market that to schools and agencies, churches. I work hard to just keep my website up. For some reason, that's really challenging. I don't know why. And so I kind of work on it from both of those prongs. Domestic violence is all built on silence. It's like a big house of cards. You take out that one silence card, it kind of falls. These people that are perpetrators, they want to be seen as pillars of the community. Most of them are pillars of the community: deacons, lawyers, congresspeople, firemen, teachers. They're every profession that you can imagine. And they don't want to be seen in a bad light. So silence is what keeps this all up and running so that they can go back to their high-powered jobs and to keep doing this. If you start talking, things are going to start crumbling pretty fast.
I can imagine. Well, real quickly, because we're going to run out of time soon.
Yeah.
You attended a health fair at a school, and there was a bookmarker that kind of prompts some things with you. If you have that bookmarker, you can kind of like just hold it up so our viewers may be able to see it. But you mentioned to me earlier that that bookmarker kind of said, okay, this is where I need to be and what I need to do. So, you've written your books and you're inspiring people. So if there's someone out there that's listening and watching us, what would be your final words of encouragement to that person to get out of their situations outside of dialing 1-800-799-7233? How would you encourage them?
I think first educate yourself, because if you're like me and you're not being hit, you might not understand domestic violence, and I didn't, and that's a whole nother education in of itself. I would get educated. The book I read was I Don't Want to Talk About It. These were the markers of a healthy relationship, and then they had the markers on the back of an unhealthy relationship. I had every unhealthy relationship marker except physical abuse. And when I saw it in black and white, I'm like, oh, I don't think I can blow this off anymore, because you blow it off. I wanted to stay happily married till death do us part. That's what I signed up for. And I really believe that. So it took a lot for me to unhinge from that. And this bookmark was a pivotal piece in my discovery journey, as they say. So my only advice to people out there who were saying, oh, I don't know what's going on, educate yourself. And if you are in domestic violence, stop working so hard and give yourself a lot of grace. And maybe start to make other plans for your children. It's very hard to leave a situation, but the ramifications of kids staying when they're teenagers, you are going to be dealing with 100-fold problems. And that's 100%. I can say that with 100% certainty, unfortunately.
And, again, every situation is unique and every situation is different. So because you were able to survive and come through that, their survival may be a different route. Unfortunately, we've got just a couple of seconds, but I want you in maybe about a second and a half to share with our listeners and our viewers, if they need help and they want to contact you about your book or your blogs or your website, got about a minute and a half I can give you to tell them how they can reach out to you.
Sure. You could, probably my most popular book is Some Parts Are Not for Sharing. Google that and it will take you back to juliefederico.com. It's Juliefederico.com. Or Google Anger is Okay, Violence is Not. That'll get you back to me. And I have a lot of resources on my page. I answer emails from people that might be struggling and needing someone to talk to. I will always redirect you back to your local domestic violence shelter, because they are the experts. And this is not an easy process, and you should not do it alone. You need a trained expert to guide you through a lot of the minefields that you will find. By the grace of God, I did it alone, and I don't believe I was alone. I believe he was with me, but I had no people in my life, and it was extremely lonely, and it was very challenging.
And I can imagine, the heartfelt, because you felt so detached from your family. Unfortunately, we've already run out of time. But I want to thank you again for being my guest, and sure, you're more than welcome to come back again and maybe share some more facts about that. But I appreciate you spending your time with us again. I am Evangelist Patricia Wade, going to host of A Place Called Through, where we do broadcast from WYTV7 Community Broadcast Network. If you like this story and you have a story and you want to share, please reach out to me at area code of 604-843-604-9744. You can also follow me at A Place Called Through, Willpower, the Call to Rise Above on Facebook. Visit my website for upcoming events. Follow us to see what's going on. And that is www.willpower, the Call to Rise Above. We also host every first and third Friday, midnight prayer. Go to my website. And if you'd like to join us for prayer, if you have a prayer request, please submit that information. Or if you just want to join the team, we also accept donations, so you can also make that donation too on our website. Go to our Contact Me, and we will reply to you. Once again, I thank you for being my guest, Ms. Federico, and I do invite you to come back another time. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. Again, this is Evangelist Patricia Wade, the host of A Place Called Through, where we share those inspirational moments. We do it all because of you, with our mission of love and blessing. So we say to you, God bless you. Blessings and love to everyone. And come back again and visit us here on A Place Called Through, where we share those inspirational stories designed especially for you because we care about you. Blessings and love. Thank you again.